But to see, when we sell this, we just pick this pot up right here like this, and this will go to market.
In the past, field production, growing plants in soil, and above-ground container production have been the dominant production systems for nursery crops. Pot and pot production is a method of growing plants that is a hybrid of these traditional systems. More specifically, pot and pot production is a two-pot system, where one pot, the socket pot, is permanently installed in the field, and the other pot, the production pot, is the container the plant actually grows in. It is placed in the socket pot during production and lifted out of the socket pot to harvest the plant. Pot and pot is growing in popularity because it gives growers a system in which to grow large trees. Pot and pot production typically spans from 7-gallon to 25-gallon containers. The trees are lightweight compared to field-grown trees due to the use of a soilless substrate as the growing medium. Also, trees do not blow over, which can lead to damaged branches, loss of top-applied fertilizer, and disruption of irrigation applications. No overwintering structure is required, and no heavy, large, expensive harvesting equipment is required. Plants can actually be harvested any time of year because the whole root system is in the container. In field production, large harvesting equipment must be able to access each tree. Essentially, there is a driveway between each row of trees. Pot and pot production has a distinct advantage over field production in that rows of plants can be spaced relatively close together, increasing plant density over field production, with driveways only as often as is convenient for harvesting. One of the greatest benefits of pot and pot production is that the trees are grown under a higher management level when compared to field production. Water and nutrient applications are controlled to optimize growth while reducing waste. There are disadvantages to pot and pot production. The installation can be quite a production and requires that the grower devote a period of time to this activity. Some production systems may even require that the work be divided over a season or two. Also, the system can be expensive to install depending on what equipment the grower has access to. The grower is paying for the ease of harvesting up front, before there are any plant sales to offset the cost. In addition, the grower must make semi-permanent changes to his or her field. These decisions affect future use of the fields and impact future pot and pot production. Several important considerations must be made before installing a pot and pot system. First, because the plants are growing in a container in a soilless substrate, a reliable, high-quality water source is a must. Have your water tested before you plan on any type of container production. In addition, talk with an agriculture engineer or irrigation specialist about the volume of water necessary and other important factors related to setting up the irrigation system. Second, because the containers are in the ground, the soil must drain well. The site cannot flood, even infrequent flooding is too often. Even well-draining soil will likely need drain tile installed. Finally, the site should have a gentle slope. Many of the larger growers will laser level their fields to the desired grade before installing drainage tile. In addition to these decisions, a grower will have to determine ahead of time what their market will be and what size and what type of trees their market will buy. Because the pot and pot system is semi-permanent, 20 years or so, the grower must decide what size of container to install, which will ultimately decide what size of plant he or she will have for sale for a very long time. In addition, the spacing of containers within a row and row spacing, as well as driveway frequency and width, must be determined before installing the pot and pot system. Again, these are all semi-permanent features. The spacing determines how many plants per acre and the level of light and air circulation the plants receive. Access must be considered for mowing equipment, air blast sprayers, and tractors and trailers. The pot and pot system can be expensive to install, so one may want to consider growing only those plants with the highest profit margin and only container sizes with the highest profit margin. Budgets are available for pot and pot production from the University of Kentucky Horticulture Department. There are 3 main ways pot and pot production can be installed. First, let's look at installing the drain tile with a plow and the socket pots with an auger. Measure and mark where rows and driveways will be. Use a tile plow to install a drainage line for each row. Allow the soil to settle for as long as is feasible. Each row should connect to a main drainage line running perpendicular to the rows and feeding into a retention pond. After the soil has settled, use the markers to determine where the lines of the drain tile are. Spray paint the soil at a spacing that corresponds with the center of each pot. For example, if pots will be on 5-foot centers, then spray a dot of paint every 5 feet. A line staked at the beginning and at the end of the row with a ribbon at each pot center can help keep the row straight and keep the spacing accurate. Auger a hole about 6 inches too shallow, or else risk puncturing the tile. Dig out the rest of the hole by hand. Another option is to weld or bolt an adjustable stop to the auger to function as a depth gauge. Weld a piece of angle iron to extend 6 or 8 inches out from the side of the auger, so that it will sling and scatter the soil as the auger reaches the desired depth. Be sure to leave enough soil to fill in around the container. Use small gravel to fill any space between the bottom of the socket pot and the drain tile. Set the socket pot in the hole and backfill with gravel or soil. Be sure to keep the pot level. If the pot is not level, the tree will not be straight upon harvest. Another method is to use a backhoe to install the drain tile and the pots. Measure and mark where rows and driveways will be. Excavate a trench a little wider than the width of the socket pots. If the field has not been laser leveled, the trench must get deeper to ensure drainage. Lay the drain tile down, tamp soil firmly, or use gravel to create a firm base for the socket pot. Some growers stake a string a known number of feet out from the row. A ribbon is tied around the string, or the string is spray painted marking where the center of each pot should go. A piece of wood or other material is cut to the distance the string is from where the middle of the pot should go and is used as a visual marker during installation of each pot to make sure that the pot is in the center of the row. Fill in around the pot with gravel or soil. Backfilling can involve a lot of labor with this method. Also, a lot of settling will take place with this method. After several good rains, the backfilled soil should have settled enough to till and rake the area level. The third method of installing pot-in-pot production is to use a trencher and an auger. Growers that have tried this method have found some significant problems. If the trench is not filled in and allowed to settle before augering the potholes, the auger will not dig straight into the ground. In addition, some have reported excess loose dirt that must be raked into a taper down from each pot or hauled away. This could lead to sunken area as the soil settles over time. Variation of this method is to auger the holes first and leave them empty, then trench the line for the drain tile. Soil will get in the hole with this method, creating a lot of hand labor. Fabric can now be applied over the area. Fabric should be staked down, and then X's can be cut over each socket pot and the fabric folded back under itself. Flaps of cut fabric should not hang down between the socket pot and the insert pot. If herbicide-impregnated fabric will be used as a rooting out control, since the fabric prevents a tight fit between the walls of the two pots. Rows should be staggered so that plants have the maximum amount of space. With all methods, it is important to keep the pots level and to keep rows of pots straight. A piece of rebar can be used as a stake through the center drain hole of the socket pot. The rebar will hold the pot in place while backfilling around the side of the pot. The person backfilling can also stand inside the pot and support the side wall of the pot with his or her leg to prevent it from caving in. A second pot nested inside the socket pot will also help prevent the sidewalls from collapsing while backfilling around the pot. Some growers put down lateral lines for irrigation underneath the fabric and others over the top of the fabric. Either way, it is now time to run a water line to the production area if this has not already been done.
Now that you're ready to grow, don't forget to contact the Kentucky Nursery Inspectors at the University of Kentucky Department of Entomology to get a Kentucky Nursery license before you sell any trees. Your county extension agent for horticulture or agriculture and natural resources can help you contact them. Also, check out the UK Department of Horticulture website for a presentation on PNP systems across the USA and Getting Started in the Nursery Landscape Industry by Winston Dunwell and Robert McNeil.